Welcome to today's video. In my last video I showed a game where I played black against the Trompowsky. Now I want to show you a game when I was on the white side, and this is the game when I really played very badly. However, isn't it the best to learn from mistakes? And if you can learn from my mistakes, then hopefully you will not have to learn from yours. So let's get started. The opening was a Trompowsky, as I said, and it started with the move d4, knight f6, bishop g5. So you remember this idea. We want to target this knight and double black's pawns, possibly in return for giving up the bishop, but hoping to imbalance the position and avoid the main lines of Queen's Gambit, King's Indian or similar mainline openings. One of the responses that black can play is to play knight e4, which immediately turns my bishop, the hunter, into the hunted one. So what shall we play? I liked this system that was recommended by FM Kamil Plichta in one of his courses, which is to defend the bishop with the pawn. And should black exchange the bishop, we will take with the pawn, take back with the pawn and open the h-file for a dangerous attack later on. That's the idea. Unfortunately, black did not cooperate with this idea. He just played h6. Okay, bishop goes back. And now d5, solidifying this knight, which is really like a bone in my throat. So what do? Knight d2, developing the knight and trying to chase this black knight away, which happened. Knight to d6, and now I continue with development. Knight f3, so does black. Bishop f5, playing in the style a little bit of the London system, and you can see that I'm also actually playing in a similar style myself. e3. Now it really looks like London system, doesn't it? Black plays knight c6, move that I'm not very convinced of. Typically in those types of structures, you want to play the move c5 to challenge the center. Now with the knight blocking the c-pawn, this is more difficult. But okay, it's a solid move. Maybe not very active, but nothing wrong to say about it either. c3. Solid, but again, not a very active move either. e6 by black, trying to open this bishop. And now, instead of developing my last piece, minor piece, and maybe trying to castle, maybe trying to develop further, I played a dubious move. I played the move knight to e5. Yes, it is nice to take this square for the knight, and this is something that probably white would want to do later on, but this move seems to me a bit premature. Black takes, white takes back, and now queen d7, maybe hoping to make castle queenside later on. Not clear, but it's a good move to develop the queen. g4 by white, so you can see that I'm really going all out against this bishop. Now the bishop goes to g6, h5, chasing it again, and it drops back to h7. Now you can see that my king is really starting to feel a bit of air. All of those squares on the king side are weak, are empty. The pawns have marched forward, and something is not going well for white. You can clearly see that. Where should white king go? Now, with all this said about the safety of my king, one thing that I definitely should not do in this position is to open up the center. Guess what? That's exactly what I did. I played c4. By the way, I forgot to mention that this game was played in 2019 and my opponent was John Carter. It was the team championship of the Oxfordshire County in England. Now, after the move c4, black happily takes the pawn, and now white should probably just say, okay, I lost a pawn, but the game goes on. But what I played next is really bad. I played the move knight takes c4, which black happily captured. I took back with the bishop, and now there is a very simple move, very simple tactics, double attack by black. If you want to spot it for yourself, pause the video. I'll give you 5 seconds from now. Okay, so the move is queen c6, double attack on the bishop and the rook in the corner. Now you can see the weaknesses of those kingside pawns really start to tell. None of this would be possible if the pawn was back on g2. So yeah, I'm just lost a piece. Now the question really is, which piece do I want to give up? So probably giving up the bishop is more reasonable, but I was hoping that if I give the rook in the corner, I might be able to generate some counterplay. So I played queen b3, protecting the bishop, but of course I'm giving up the rook in the corner, which black happily took. Check, king has to go to e2. And here is the critical moment of this game. Now, black is up a rook, which is a lot of material. This is pretty much game over. And instead of being greedy, black should now just probably play queen to e4. Black is up a rook. My king is not very safe. Just finish the development next. Everything is going great for black and he should win the game easily. But black was a bit greedy. He took the second rook. And now this already gives some counter chances to white. At this point, I really wanted to resign the game, but then I started to think a little bit more. And I saw that, yes, I am 2 rooks down. So I'm pretty much lost. But on the other hand, look at those pieces by black. They don't do very much, do they? And especially those extra rooks, which are his advantage. They are stuck in the corners, not doing much. The queen, that was so active and, captured both of my rooks, is also stuck in the corner. It will require at least 2 more moves to go back into the game. So maybe there is a chance. Also, the king, black king, is in the center, and I have those 3 pieces close by. So let's try to do something. Maybe we can still generate some counterplay. Queen b7. That's the first step. Attacking the rook. The rook is now has to go somewhere. Now please notice that the rook cannot go to d8, which is the only safe square for the rook, because then it will be a very quick checkmate following bishop g5 check. Yeah, it's just very, very scary. Black's gonna be mated. So what was the best move for black in this position? Well, probably the best move was to play bishop to b4. Give up the rook. Now the king goes, maybe then the second rook can be taken, but with the bishop, black's bishop on b4, there are some nasty threats to my king as well. I will probably get mated pretty soon. So this was the best, and the position is completely winning for black. Instead, black tried to save the rook. Again, maybe a bit greedy. He played bishop to e4, which seems to give up the bishop. Black was hoping that white will simply take the bishop, and then the rook can go, and it's pretty much over for white. But instead, white can do something much stronger. The move is bishop to b5 check. Okay. Ignoring the threat to the queen, ignoring the possibility to capture the bishop, it's now check to the black king. Black has to either move the king, but moving the king anywhere here or here ends up with pretty much straightforward checkmate. So the only way to play is actually to block the check with the pawn. Okay. Now, the pawn is blocking the check, but it's also blocking the bishop. So now the rook can be simply taken with check. Okay. Queen 8 takes a8 check, I'm one rook back, still losing material-wise, but I have recovered some material back. King goes to d7, queen b7 check, king e8, and now another check, king c8, king e7, queen to c7 check, king goes back to e8, queen c8 check, king e7. At this point, it looks like white is going just to repeat the moves, and it will be a threefold repetition. And as you probably know, threefold repetition of the same position on the board is, by rules of chess, is a draw. But now, again, when you are in such a situation, it's a very difficult moment psychologically. You've been losing, you were on the verge of resigning, now you have achieved a draw. Should you take it? Well, the natural inclination is yes, let's go for it. We have a draw, we are safe. But especially at such critical moment, it's really good to think deeper into the position. Because whenever there is something good, whenever there is a good move in the position, look for a better one. And this move is bishop to d6 check. What's the point of this move? Well, if black takes the bishop, then queen to d8 is a beautiful checkmate. Notice that these squares would be covered by the queen, these two by the pawn, and this one also by the latent attack of the queen. That would be a very beautiful checkmate. So black cannot accept the sacrifice of the bishop. He has to go away with the king to f6, but now you just continue with the mate checkmating attack. Queen d8 check. The only thing that black can do, notice that he cannot go anywhere. He has to interpose the check with the bishop. But now queen e7 is a checkmate. Well, actually, you could do the same with the bishop. It would be an even more beautiful checkmate, but a checkmate is a checkmate, so we won't complain about this. So what's the lesson? What's the point of this game? Well, first of all, it was a game full of blunders, full of terrible mistakes, missing simple tactics by me. But also there were some mistakes by my opponent, which allowed me to take this win. And probably what I would say, the mistakes by black were greed, being greedy first of all, but second of all, maybe feeling too relaxed, thinking that the game is now over and waiting for the opponent, for me to resign. It's another dangerous moment psychologically. When you think that you are winning, this is probably the moment when it's the easiest to lose concentration, lose focus, and actually lose the winning game, which would be sad. And it definitely was sad for black. Happy for me, though. So yeah, I hope that you enjoyed this game, and again, that it was entertaining and instructional. Thank you very much, and see you in the next video.